Well, it was back in 1999, right towards the end of that year, when I believed that the Lord told me that he was going to send me to South Austin. And it was about that point in time when I spoke with my wife, Brenda, and also my pastor. And I just let them know, just right about the year 2000, that I believe that God wanted me to go to South Austin to plant a church. And so both my wife, Brenda, and my pastor said, oh, okay, we'll see. So, it was one of those things where it's just kind of like, oh, maybe not. And, being someone who isn't going to just quickly step out and say, thus saith the Lord and God told me so, I wanted that accountability. I wanted to hear the confirmation from Brenda, and I wanted to hear confirmation from my pastor. We have a saying about pastors who go out on their own versus pastors who are sent by their pastor. The saying is, some were sent and some just went. And that's something that I look at. I want to know, were you sent out by your pastor? Did the leadership of your church put hands on you and confirm the Holy Spirit's calling and send you out? Or did you just go do your own thing? Because a lot of guys just go do their own thing, and a lot of times it doesn't work out well. So I didn't want to just send myself. I wanted to be sent, and I was going to wait till my pastor sent me. And that was 5 years of waiting. And really, in comparison to say like, Moses and David, 5 years, not a long time. Not a long time. But so I waited, and I wanted to hear my wife tell me, yeah, I do think that this is God's will. Because I don't want to live for the rest of my life in the middle of marital conflict because I drug her along to go and pastor a church. Clearly, anybody who knows Brenda knows that she's extremely introverted and doesn't want me to talk about her right now. So as she slides her purse up in front of her, I draw more attention to her. So, but I didn't want to drag her into the position of, pastor's wife, because that was going to put a spotlight on her for the rest of her life. And that wasn't something that I was going to force her into. I wanted to know that she heard from God about this. And so I waited for the confirmation from Brenda, and also my sending pastor. I wanted to hear from him that he knows God is, leading in this sending me to South Austin. So, 3 years went by and nothing. And, I wasn't, bugging my pastor or constantly, asking Brenda for confirmation. I just kind of let it all lie out there and wait for the confirmation. And after 3 years, a guy from a church, Calvary Chapel in Prescott, Arizona, came to Texas and met with my pastor and told him he was going to come and wanted to plant a church in South Austin. And my pastor said, well, go talk to Bunjee. And we went to lunch. And, he was pretty set on coming to South Austin and planting a Calvary Chapel. And I told him, I said, hey, just as long as you understand that I think I'm supposed to go to South Austin as well, so you have to understand, if you're going to plant a church in South Austin, I might be planting a church in your backyard one day. So as long as you're good with that, I'm good with it. And you just got to do what God's calling you to do. So he went back to Prescott and prayed and felt like he was supposed to come to South Austin, and called my pastor and said, hey, we're coming, just unless you're going to send Bunjee out. And at that point in time, my pastor wasn't sending me. Didn't feel like that was the right timing. And so he said, come on. And my pastor came into my office, and I was asleep on the desk. And when I heard him come in, I woke up and I just said, in the name of Jesus, amen. And the drool gave it away. But so he asked me if I was ready to go to South Austin. I said, well, are you sending me? And he said, no. And I said, well, I'm not going anywhere then. I'll be here till you send me. And so he went and told Damien to come on and go ahead and plant the church here. And that's what Damien did. And his family came, and others came from Prescott, and they planted the church. And there are some here tonight who were part of that initial church plant. So with that, there are a few people here tonight who have been at Calvary South Austin longer than me. So I know Chris and Gloria, you guys were here before I started pastoring. Tom, I think Tom's here tonight. Tom, yeah. Yeah, Tom, was here before before I was pastoring. Tom was here before churches. I let you go with the dinosaurs on Sunday, but he thought I'd matured, I'm like, not so much. Anybody else was here before I started pastoring here? I think that's all I see tonight. But so point being though that, this church was planted 2 years before I started pastoring it. And what's interesting about that is as soon as my pastor left the office to go call Damien and let him know to go ahead and come, as he left my office, I felt like the Lord impressed my heart with, some information that was interesting to me. I didn't know what to do with it at the time, but the Lord spoke to me clearly and said, he'll be here 2 years, and then I'm sending him back to Prescott, and you'll pastor the church. And so I'm thinking, is that me? Is that just me consoling myself? Is that God? And, as I've received stuff like this, like God told me, I was going to go to South Austin, right? That's something that he impressed my heart with. And, okay, well, we'll wait and see. And that's how I take that when I hear something that I think is from God, but can't just point at a Bible verse to confirm it. I just treat it as wait and see. Let's see what the Lord does. This is what Mary did when the angel told her about the birth of Jesus Christ. She hid the information away in her heart, and then she waited to see if these things came to pass. And that's the way I treat it as well. It's, I'm going to wait and see if this is God speaking to me, then it'll come to pass. And sure enough, 2 years went by. And Damien was there in the office. This was the week before Thanksgiving, 2004. And I was on my way out to go get some tamales from Rosie's Tamales for our Thanksgiving party, because nothing's better at Thanksgiving than tamales. No? Amen? Yeah. As I said before, and I'll say it forever, eating turkey is like chewing on napkins. So tamales, though, now there's something to get excited about. There's something to be thankful for. And so, 2004, I'm on my way out the door to get some tamales and bring them back for our Thanksgiving party. And there was Damien in the office. And I was like, hey, Damien, we didn't see him much, but there he was. And so I left. And as I was out picking up tamales, my pastor called me and said, as soon as you get back to the office, come straight to my office. And I thought, oh no, I'm in trouble again. So I came back and I went to his office and he sat me down. He said, well, Damien's done. Damien, by his own words, said the Lord removed the vision for the church from him and couldn't find anybody to take over. They had just signed a lease at that warehouse on South Congress, and he didn't want to stay here. He didn't want to remain in the lease, and so he needed somebody to take on that 5-year lease, and he couldn't find anybody to do it. And then he remembered that I felt called to South Austin, so he came and asked Alan, if he would send me to take that work over, and for my pastor, that was the confirmation that he was waiting for. And the same with Brenda. Brenda and I were heading out that weekend to go see family up in Fort Worth. And we talked about it all the way. And she felt like that was also, God's stamp of approval on my sending. And just as God had told me, 2 years went by. And that's when God sent Damien back to Prescott, Arizona, and sent me to South Austin. And my first Bible study was the first Wednesday of February 2005. And I remember giving a message that was about, how Moses died and left, the leadership to Joshua. And so Joshua came in and by God's design took over the leadership position. And I just kind of used that as a parallel to Damien leaving and God bringing me in to continue the leadership of the church. And so I've always tried to honor Damien's work and what he did here, realizing that this was God's providential plan to start a church and then, use this as a way to confirm for my pastor that it was time to send me, and also the timing for that came from my wife, Brenda. So with all of that, 5 years seemed like forever. Now that I've been here 20 years, 5 years didn't seem like a long time at all, right? And so maybe you're waiting on something, maybe you're waiting for God to confirm something or do something in your life, and you're just like, when is it going to happen? And I felt like God told me something. And I would just say, just be patient. Just allow God to do things in his timing. If you try to do it in the flesh, I know that Pastor Chuck always said, whatever you attain in the flesh, you have to maintain in the flesh. And, that was one of those Chuckisms that I think I've got them all memorized. But it was just one of those Chuckisms, one of those axioms that, Chuck would always say, and I would just think, yeah, that's right on. Where God guides, God provides, another axiom there. But whatever you attain in the flesh, you have to maintain in the flesh, and that's just a lot of flesh. So with that, I'm super excited to be here, and I'm just incredibly blessed to be surrounded by so many incredible believers. And I wanted to invite some of those guys up, the lead deacons of this church, who help keep me accountable and oversee the ministries of this church so that I can focus on praying for this church and teaching the Bible and giving counseling. And these guys, really take control of all the other ministries and organize the ministries of this church so that we can have these ministries that they're overseeing while I do the thing that God has called me to do here. So with that, let's welcome our lead deacons to the stage. Some of them are cheering for the Eagles. Some of them are cheering for, who's the other team?
Chiefs. The Chiefs.
It doesn't matter. So the other team. But if I learned anything from Schoolhouse Rock, is that it's cool to be for the other team. Like, not even the old people are following me on this right now. Come on, Lowell, you know what I'm talking about. Thank you. All right, well, with that, we'll excuse Jeremy's heightening shoes, and we'll get down.
It already started.
No?
But I also have a mic, so let it go.
Yeah, and a boss.
He fires me every week. I just don't put the paperwork in.
Every time I fire him, I show back up the next week, and he's still here. I'm like, what in the world? All right, well, we're going to just kind of carry on a conversation up here. Chris Knox has this idea that he's going to be able to knock out his little portion in 2 minutes and then be done and then just sit up here looking pretty the rest of the time. But no, the only two guys up here without facial hair. And come on, guys. All right. All right, so let's start down with Ruben on this go around. How long you been? Whoa. Pardon me. So, Ruben, how long you been here at Calvary South Austin?
15 years now, yep. Since late 08, I think.
And you came in from College Station.
No, I came in from El Paso.
So it wasn't El Paso, College Station, Austin?
No. She was in College Station, so I went.
She who? She who?
You people in your College Station.
That's what I meant. Come on.
Saturday's just a couple days away, guys.
I swear I had smoother lines when I was younger. My wife, Catalina, was in College Station, so I went over there a lot. But I'm from El Paso.
Right.
I went to the Calvary there for a couple years before I graduated college, and then actually went to the Pflugerville campus a few times, and then came down here, and then been here ever since.
Yep, stuck. David numero dos, because Leal was here first. Well, as a lead deacon.
You're 0 for 2.
So you're right. We're on the house. Yeah, David and I have been hanging out for 25 years.
Yeah, I guess Jennifer and I came from Calvary Austin, and so I've known Bunjee for 25 years.
Quarter of a century.
Yeah, probably 25 years. I've known him, and so I think I was invited by Jeremy, who is a friend from Lockhart, and I wasn't doing well, and I wasn't in a body, that was really, really, biblically based and thriving. And so he invited me to come, and I was excited. And I think I came to Calvary Austin, and then someone invited me to accountability right afterwards. And I had met you, and I didn't even know what accountability was. I was like, what is accountability? And I said, where you go and you take and you apply what the pastor has spoken about, to your own life. And I was like, wow. So I sat down, and you actually were leading that group that day in accountability. And so for the next 6 months, I would get headaches from just trying to change. I was letting someone into my into my headspace and trying to get things cleaned up. And so applying God to my life, it was very stressful for a while, but I was excited about it. So that was the first time I got to meet you.
He wears the knit cap to cover the scars.
What did you think about Bunjee when you met him the first time?
You don't have to answer his questions.
Should I answer that? Probably should.
So you came with that group of 40 when I came to South Austin.
Yeah, I think there was I don't know, 6 months. We were wrestling over it. Do we go? Do we not go? And then, we just, I think ever since I first met you, one of the things that really was a draw was that you were applying God's word to not only your life, but to everybody, that you were around. And so you were sharing God's word. I think, there was a big outreach that you had involved us in, and that was very impactful for me because it was someone who outreached to me that, caused me to give my life to Christ. And so I saw you outreaching to other people. And, faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. So I was just super excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we felt called to come and plug in.
Glad you guys did. Yep. And Jeremy, you were hanging out at Frontline about 25 years ago. And
Yep, I came in 2000. So, 25 years ago.
yeah.
If that math stands up.
Well, Chris, can you get your abacus out? Crunch some numbers real quick. Yeah, so, and then you took over media when I was at Calvary Austin, when I became the associate pastor over discipleship.
Yep, I remember those days. I remember those days.
So that, so, yeah, no.
I know.
And so then, you came. We actually started an artistic, media-based Bible study that was connected to a TV show that we were doing.
Yep. We started the Regenerator Bible study or
Regenerator?
something like
Or
that.
Regeneration.
Well, Regeneration TV show is what we used to do. The Generator Bible study.
Generator.
It was a Bible study for creative Christians. And we were meeting in the casting agency that I worked at, and it filled up really quickly. We were doing it once a month.
Yeah.
And I remember that, so when you said November, it threw my dates off a little bit. I was I thought it was closer to Christmas, but I trust Brenda's mind.
It was Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
When Brendan and I discussed the possibility.
So I think what happened is we couldn't meet in the casting agency anymore because it filled up too big. And so we canceled the November and the December meeting and we told them, pray. We don't know where we're gonna meet in January, but we had a handful of money. Literally, we took up a little collection to see where we could go rent a space, and it was I want to say, if I remember correctly, $185 for the whole group. It was nothing. It's a handful of money. And do you remember we used to drive up and down Congress looking for a place, praying for a place, and what was cool is, I guess that was in early November time, because by the time you found out, I remember you calling, because we had been praying for a place, looking for a place, and then all of a sudden you had a place. He calls me and he tells me, he says, hey, I'm going to be sent down to South Austin, And there was a building already and 40 people, and then we brought 40 people with us. And so it was a total answer prayer. And I remember when Bunjee said, hey, we're going to have you guys up here, this is the first thing that came to mind, because we're 20 years later, we're in a similar situation where we got a handful of money, we have a big God, and we're praying for a location. And so back then, it was me and Bunjee driving up and down Congress, praying and moving in faith, because I knew like we were going to have a place to meet. We just didn't know where. And so here we are 20 years later, and we all get to pray and see what God does. And it's cool because it's not just us two in a car driving up and down. It's everybody here gets to see what God's going to do with faith. What was the question?
So yeah, you've been here since the beginning.
Yep. Came down, and what's funny is I told Walter I was going to say this story. Is I remember the first time Bunjee told me he was going to be a pastor. And I was like, "You're already a pastor. I saw you get ordained." He's like, I said, "You're an assistant pastor," which some might say is more prestigious, but whatever. So we were on a road trip to Houston, and he tells me
very short-sighted.
He opens up. He's like, "Yeah, I feel God calling me to be a pastor." And I'm like, and I tried to talk him out of it, guys. I was like, he was an apologist. He's still an apologist. He had taught that young.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he taught the Young Earth Study this Sunday, and I was like, yeah, he's still doing all that, defending the faith stuff. And but I was like, dude, what a headache to run a church. Here we are 20 years later. But I remember going, there's hundreds of pastors, and there's only a few Bible answer men, and that's what he was doing. The people would call him out, and he would give speeches and talks places. We had a TV show, a radio show, and I just remember I was like, well, and I remember doing one of these. I said, when he calls you, see ya. I'm staying here, dude. I'll take over the media ministry. And I just remember, he cried for the rest of the road trip. I would try to say something. He'd turn the radio up, passive aggressive.
All by myself.
Drowning out the tears. But then like 2 years later or something like that, I forget what it was, but do you remember we were at Schlotsky's? And I was like,
how could I forget that?
We went to a lot of places to eat. I was going to say, look, when
I was more of an Alvin Ords guy, but
even Arby's.
But I remember at Schlotsky's,
got the meat.
I was a 180. Like the Lord had, because I loved my church, I loved my pastor, I loved everything that was going on. But then the Lord had confirmed to me like that He was going to be a pastor, and that He was going to be my pastor. And I remember. And this kind of is the testimony to what you said a little while ago about how you were waiting for confirmation from your pastor and from Brenda. I was like, dude, we got to go to South Austin. You got to plant a church, man. What are you doing with yourself, And delayed obedience is disobedience. I didn't say that, but I was like going, getting a little hysterical. And it was, if you guys are pretty old people who remember like black and white TV shows in the 50s. It was wrong back then. It's wrong today. But like somebody would be hysterical, usually a woman, and then the guy would slap her and slap some sense into him. And that's what your pastor did to me that day, metaphorically. And he was like, calm down. He goes, I'm not going to leave the church I was raised up in, discipled in, ordained in, until my pastor sends me and my wife confirms it. I remember that word for word. And I remember it was and what's really cool, it was just a short while for me. I didn't have to wait the 5 years. It was just a short while after that he called me. He said, hey, check this out. We've been looking for a place. We got a place. So it was really cool, man.
Yep. We brought that. It was kind of an art-centered study that, we did studies like, looking at colors in light of the Trinity and, film and all kinds of different things. The poetry of the Bible was one of the studies, and a lot of fun. But then when we came into Calvary South Austin, I think we continued that for a little while, but then pastoring the church kind of became overwhelming. It's a lot of work. So thankfully for these guys, many hands make light work. So with that, let's hear from numero uno.
So I got here in '08. My wife was actually attending in North Austin. So we were dating, and I was going up there to see her, so she invited me to church. And she said she'll start coming down to South Austin if I would show up. I said, sure. So that's how I got here. Bunjee used to put me to sleep. It was a great nap. She used to hit me all the time. I enjoyed my nap, but at least I got to spend some time with her. But during that, the Lord used Bunjee to challenge me. I do remember our pre-marriage counseling. That was not fun.
I was having a blast.
I wasn't.
Yeah. So, been here since 2008 and got saved in what, 2012?
Yes. Minus 10 years.
Awesome. Franco, also from El Paso.
From El Paso, yes. So I came in 2005, got saved in 2004, came in 2005. So I got almost 20 years. This year will be 20 years.
Yeah.
Been here, so it's been good. It's been good.
All right, we'll move down to. We'll let Chris check a box here.
Check my box.
You're the one guy up here that has been here longer than
That's
myself.
right. So I can give my perspective of the other side of the coin.
Yep.
So you guys were coming from up north. I was already here. So I've been here maybe 23, 24 years. When I started going to the church when Damien was there, he was a very blessed teacher. He had a gift for teaching. But we were meeting at Ditmar Park, and there was about 15 of us. And then we grew a little bit, maybe 25 or 30 people. And then we ended up getting that building over on Congress, and so we moved over there. But the church, since it was so small, we had one service. It was very tightly knit. It was very family-like because, everybody was together all the time. And every week we had a potluck after service. So we had our service, we had a potluck. We did different things together. We went out to some people's farms and stuff and had get-togethers there. But then one day, he announced that he felt like he was being called back to Arizona, and everybody was floored, of course. Everybody had grown very fond of him. But it shows you how the Lord prepares the way for his people in the plan that he has for them. Because he was sent out at a very young age to set up a church, which was then handed over to Bunjee, which was prepared for him. Now, Bunjee came down and took out the whips and overthrown the tables. But if you've ever been in a company where you had a new manager or a new supervisor or a new boss, the culture changes. And that was a big, significant thing that happened, is we had a culture, and it was very family-like. Then we have somebody that's new coming in with his own group of people that follow him from North Austin. And so there was a big clash of cultures as that tried to change and settle into the new culture. And so, some people left, some people didn't. But it's really an amazing thing to watch God work in a church over so long of a period. My relationship with Bunjee, I think, has grown pretty much. He's really significant to my spiritual growth and the things that I've gone through personally. Sometimes he doesn't remember my name because, I'm a nobody, but he's significant to me. But I think I really hold him in the position as a head pastor as being the shepherd of the church. And the shepherd is not just somebody who teaches sermons. It's somebody who chastises you or corrects you or counsels you, or he does what's necessary to get you spiritually healthy. That's his goal, is to make sure we're spiritually growing so that we can then pass that on to other people, that we're sharing the gospel with others. He equips us with the knowledge to defend our faith. So through our relationship, I've been just an attendant. I've gone to him with concerns and Matthew 18 him at one time. It was really not something that he did that was wrong, but I was offended, and so I needed to clear that up. And so we met, and he spoke and he, very cleared it up. It really helped out. And that's what you should do if you're offended by somebody. You should meet with them and discuss it, because I guarantee you, if they're coming here with a heart to serve the Lord and they offend you, they didn't intend to do that. They're not intending to hurt you. He's also been in the role of counselor. He's counseled myself and my lovely wife, Gloria, on multiple occasions. I've sought his counsel in changing careers and looking for, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what God wants me to, or am I seeking after my own heart? And I'm seeking his counsel to kind of guide me into making sure that I'm not seeking after myself. I've also been chastised by him because I had the wrong mindset in service, in my service to the Lord for something specific, when I should have been focused on what God wanted me to do instead of the effort I was putting into it and thinking that it was too much. I've grown a lot in my relationship with the Lord. I'm very happy to be a part of this body. We have some great people here to fellowship with and to keep accountable with one another. It really goes to show how good he has been blessed with the skills and the gifts to teach and lead in the congregation. And
Senior moment.
But I'm also on the board, and
He gets $5 every compliment. So I'm like going, man, I'm going broke here.
He's strong.
It's handsome. Keep it
I wouldn't
going.
go that far, but
Not just another pretty face.
I didn't hear none of that.
So how long you been a lead deacon here?
I've been a lead deacon after we moved into this location, so maybe the second year after that. So what's that been, like 13 years or something like that?
Yeah.
Tom stepped down, and I was asked to step up, and the Lord,
And you were serving in the ministry with Tom.
I was. So it was a switcheroo where he was our leader and now I'm his leader. But he is, still the man with the plan. He actually started the bookstore when we were at the other location. We didn't have anything, and he started it from scratch. And now we have a fairly good library. And keep in mind that the bookstore, all the books in there are books you can count on having the right theology in them. If you go to a Christian bookstore, if you order from Christian Book, they have everything. So things from other religions, from cults, from people who teach prosperity. But if you buy something here, or at least if you look at the titles here, you know that those books are solid and have been approved with that philosophy.
Yep. Franco, how long you been serving as lead deacon?
Memory escapes me, but I want to say 2006, but I'm not sure. I remember Cogburn was part of if I'm not mistaken, you were over maintenance at a certain point.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so there was a transition, but I just don't remember if that was. But 2006 is when I took over.
And I forgot to ask Chris. Chris, which ministries do you oversee right now?
I'm over the bookstore and the counting team.
Yep. So, I don't know what anybody gives here. I have no idea. I've never looked at those numbers. Chris knows.
Jeremy gives $5. Now you know.
Thanks, Chris.
Franco, what ministries do you oversee?
The ones I oversee right now is the singles. I oversee the ushers and greeters, and we're starting up what we call a health and safety ministry. Those are the three at this point.
And do you have to have a certain diet to be a part of the health and?
Yes, a spiritual diet.
Is it the Daniel diet? All lions all the time.
There we go.
David, how long you been a lead deacon in which ministries?
I got asked to step up in 2015, and I oversee the maintenance and cleaning ministry. So 10 years.
Good job. Jeremy, how long have you been a lead deacon?
Since 2005.
Yeah.
Yep. And oversee the hospitality, the prison, and the media, and
Worship team right now.
worship team, sound team. I think that's the umbrella of it all, right, everybody? My people? Yes? I think that's it.
Renee, anything to add to that?
Oh, men's ministry. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
None of y'all help me
I
out
was
here.
waiting for
Come
it.
on.
I wasn't going to.
It runs itself. That explains a lot.
All right, Mr. Cogburn, when did you become a lead deacon? I forgot about the maintenance.
For the second time or the first?
Yeah, you know, I
second time.
used to serve with Tom as one of the lead deacons, and I served over the maintenance ministry, and it was a disaster, by the way, Dave. But so you do so much better of a job. But I think Jennifer and I we had too many kids, and we had to step back, and things were getting too crazy, and I felt I was definitely overwhelmed. And so we stepped back for a while, and then
And then you had triplets.
and then we had triplets. Yeah,
Let's just have one more.
but I think all along I was serving in the children's ministry as a teacher, and I really love to teach. I've always loved to teach. I love to share God's word. It's exciting. I want the kids to know. I remember being young and hearing the opposite growing up, and so I was indoctrinated, and so I really struggled to receive Christ, because of just some the teaching in the schools, and so I really wanted to teach, and I think I had an opportunity to teach as a lead deacon. Someone just asked me, "Hey, there's a spot opening up, and I need someone to step up and serve for us, in elementary," and I started serving, and I've been serving in there probably for 20 years, or close, maybe not 20, but it's pushing 20. So just along the way, I've been asked to step up as a leader, and I didn't want to be a leader, and then but eventually I was talking to Ruben, and I said, hey Ruben, he was leading the children's ministry and the youth ministry, and I said, I really want to see more for the kids, for the youth, for my own kids. I said, how can I help you? He said, you can take over the children's ministry. And I was like, oh my gosh, but I knew that was the right thing. So I took it over, and it's, I don't know, it may be a couple of years. I don't really know how long it's been, something like that. So I've been leading the children's ministry for a couple of years.
Yep. Incredible. Ruben, a.k.a. the Chicano Glory.
I think Franco, we're all offended at that, right?
He's more Chicano than I am, dude. What's going on here?
I thought it was a compliment. All right.
Not in these streets.
So how long you been a lead deacon, and what are you overseeing?
Yeah, I think it's been 11, 12 years, somewhere around there. And yeah, I oversee the youth. So this includes the middle school and high school kids. Wow.
It's hard work.
Yeah. So I just I realized this a while ago, that I'm currently the age that you were when I first started coming here.
Wow.
So I'm 39.
Yeah.
And you've aged well. You look the same.
Yeah.
So I've known Bunjee.
I just thought you were
I've
bragging
known Bunjee since the
about how
beard
young you
was
are.
still dark. And also, I remember there was a phase there where you kept ragging on people who connected their beards, who had a mustache.
Yes.
And then you just gave in.
I gave up.
Yeah, you gave up. So.
The whole process has been, how do I do less?
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, like I had a goatee, so.
I mean, you could just let this just grow as it does.
Let the cul-de-sac grow.
Yeah. Chia.
Bunjee.
Yeah.
It writes itself.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so, I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about, something that changed your life here, or some way that God, really brought you to a new level in your spiritual growth in the midst of serving here at Calvary South Austin. So let's start with you.
Yeah, I've been actually reflecting on this for a while. And I even mentioned some of this during our last deacons meeting, but just serving here and then even being a leader here has really given me great perspective, not only about how to serve in a church and everything that comes along with that, but learning the lessons that I've learned as a servant here and also as a leader has really extended outside of church, even to the workplace, even to at home with my wife, with my kids, and just being a general, neighbor, a citizen. And it really has helped me develop a higher level perspective about how to just live as a citizen of heaven, just among your neighbors and among the body here. We're all represented with many different backgrounds, many different age groups, many different ways of thinking. And when you're serving, it's wonderful that we're all able to come together. But when you're serving, that's where the rubber hits the road, and you really, that verse that iron sharpens iron. You really learn a lot about yourself. You really learn about how God is working in other people's lives, and so you develop a lot of patience, a lot of long-suffering, and a lot of compassion and a lot of love for your brothers and sisters. And as you're serving alongside them, you're learning all these lessons and growing yourself, you're maturing, and then even elevating to a position of a leader of any sort. Now you have to have, it was, for me at least, it was putting on a different hat and really just thinking completely differently about serving, not only about accomplishing certain tasks at any given time, but thinking more long-term, learning to have vision, learning to think months, years down the road about how do you want this ministry, but also the people in the ministry, caring for them as individuals, and wanting them to mature. And so, personally, I've always had a passion for, just like David was saying, for teaching in general, but also for teaching kids. And so it's just wonderful to see that plan manifest itself over the years, and I now am able to have a much longer term perspective about my role here in this church, wanting them to, be the next generation they're going to replace us one day, but you want them to see Christ, to know Christ, to love Christ, and to live it out, for themselves, apart from, the pushing from their parents. But anyways, just being a servant here, being a leader has really helped me learn a lot of key lessons and really helped me mature, not only as a believer, but even, again, just in general, just being a person here, a stranger here, and interacting with people out there, and really seeing them made in the image of God, knowing that Christ died for them, knowing that Christ loves them, and how am I supposed to comport myself, and how am I supposed to show the love of Christ, extend the love of Christ. And it looks all different ways. So, yeah, learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah, Ruben shared the Cliff Notes version of that at our last lead deacon meeting, which really imparted to me vision for tonight, because listening to him kind of just share all of that and how God has impacted him through leading here in this church, and how that's affected his family, his work, his, relationships beyond. It really just was the very heart of my vision for this church, which, I can get into a lot of the ministries and how we do it and these sorts of things, and reach up, reach in, reach out, and these sorts of things. And all of that is, very mechanical and visionary, and yet, hearing this real life story about how someone's life was changed in the midst of serving the Lord here, it's like that really is the heart that I have, for why pastor a church. Well, it's to see God work in our lives and, take us from where we were and turn us into what he wants us to become. And I love it. Good stuff. David Cogburn, you want to share a story about how God has worked in your life as you've been serving?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things that come to mind, but one of the things that comes to mind, I was talking to some of the leaders earlier today, and they were mentioning, VBS. They were mentioning Fall Fiesta. Some of the outreaches that we've had, and as a children's ministry, and where we've actually had the junior helpers they're engaging. And they're learning to share, and we all can communicate the gospel. We all can be helping communicate the gospel. We all can be even in the classrooms. We have junior helpers serving, and it's one of the most beautiful things that I see is I just want to encourage all of you to have your kids be serving. In the ministries, we have 2 services, and if you can come to both, and it's a lot of work, and it's tiring, and it's frustrating at times, but over the years, you can have your children serving, and they're growing, and they're learning to teach other kids. They're learning leadership skills, and it's wonderful. But a story that I did want to share, like on a personal, I remember a few years after I had given my life to Christ, I was, and I'm on fire. I'm getting past the headaches. I'm in the process of sanctification, and I'm on fire for the Lord. I remember walking down the hallway in my first house. Of course, I rented it, but it was mine. I was renting a house, and walking down the hallway, and I had a picture on the wall, and it was from Adam to present day. And I saw it all the time, but I stopped and I saw the timeline, and the timeline didn't match what I.
Is it the one with the chimpanzee and the Neanderthal and the Cro-Magnon?
Not that one.
Not that one. Different Adam.
And so, but I remember that the earth is millions of years old. So there was a conflict between what the Bible was teaching, the timeline between the Bible, and what I had been taught to believe. Mm. And so I really had a struggle, and I was like, Lord, I don't understand. I think I gave my life to you. I feel like, my life has changed, but there's this conflict. And so I came to you, and I said, hey, how do I think about this evolution? And you reached into your bag, and you pulled out Creation, Science, and the Bible by Dwayne T. Gish, and you handed it to me. And I just ate it up. And just really transformed my life. There was an excitement there. There was answers. And so, you were my hero. So I really appreciate
come
you.
on.
Yeah. So Bunjee's been a hero to me, because he's able to stand up against those, naysayers that come against the gospel of Christ. He said, no, it's not that way. And he's able to explain it, in the face of, these bullies, so to speak. And so it gave me a lot of courage. And I've taken that courage, into my life and at work, and so, that's a big deal. But seeing the family serve and seeing the children serve, and as your children as they're able to begin to serve in the nursery or serve in the preschool or serve in the elementary, and eventually in the youth, I just want to encourage that.
Awesome.
And eventually in the media ministry, just keep it going, dude.
Yep. What you got?
So, let's see. Like it's a big question. I was like, this is my life. How did it change my life? It is my life. I met my wife here. My daughter got to go to daycare here. This is where I was raised up and discipled. And so, I think that would be the thing that, when I think of Calvary South Austin, it's discipleship. You can go to a lot of churches and you can go and leave and nobody knows who you are. But from the beginning, that's not been our church. And I remember early on, some guy would go around churches and he would leave reviews. And yeah, it's the arrogance of it. But I guess it was good if people are shopping for churches. But he came to our church. We were back at the old building, and he said, the worship was okay. The teaching was deep. And he said, but they were very friendly. And he says, I have a feeling that if you come to this church, you're not going to just be able to sit and not do something. And I thought, that's right on. That's exactly how it should be. You shouldn't be able to come to church and not get discipled. And so I think the big thing for me, and it started with me and you back at Calvary Austin, where you took me under your behemoth wings and discipled me. Pterodactyl, whatever, wrong dinosaur. Shut up, nerds. What's it called? So I would say discipleship, because that's the main thing. I mean, the Great Commission is go forth and make disciples. And in fact, I would say, and this is a little brag on you, he's not my hero, but whatever. No, I'm just kidding. But a little brag on Bunjee is like before I met Bunjee, he was ministering to me through his college career ministry people, his disciples, as Franco would call them, the Bunjamites. So when I got saved, I was at UT going to film school, and I remember there was a college career group out there inviting you to church. And I had visited 3 other churches, and they were dead, and I wasn't going to go. And I went and visited this church, and I didn't have a reason not to go back. I was an idiot. I said, let me concentrate on my films and stuff, and anything you put before the Lord is an idol. And so it took me about a year later, and guess what? Another Bunjamite in Austin, who was working on a film I was at, invites me to the same exact church. And I thought, oh my goodness, of all the churches I could have gone to in Austin, they had to bring me to the exact same one that I had no problem with. I thought it was good and everything. I just was an idiot. And so 2 Bunjamites ministered to me. And this is before I even met Bunjee. And then that person who invited me to the college career ministry, I said, no, I'm not going to go to that. And they said, well, we're doing outreach afterwards. And I was like, oh no, let me go make sure those crazy Christians aren't being mean to people. And I was saved, but I thought I knew the Bible, but I did not. I just knew more than anybody I hung around with, which is a bunch of lost people. So that's not saying much. And I went out, and they paired me up with 2 other guys. We went to Spider House Cafe, and they were gracious. They were knowledgeable. They understood they could defend their faith. They knew where passages were in the Bible. And this was my statement when I went back to my lost roommate, because I told him, I'm going to go out with the disciples today and see what they're doing. I said, those guys are like Moses. They know the Bible inside and out. It blew my mind, and I was hooked. I was like, I got to come here. I don't know, they know. And these were his disciples. So these are the guys he was raising up. I hadn't even met him yet. And then when we met, I don't remember meeting you. I remember seeing you the first time on stage. This is kind of funny. The pastor at the time at that place, he was very fashionable. And when I first started getting plugged in, I was like, man, am I going to fit in this place here? A bunch of churchy people and whatnot. I live at a church now. But he's the kind of guy who had $200 jeans with holes in them already pre-made. And I was like, ugh. But then one day, this guy is on the stage, and he's got his goatee, like he said. He had long hair back then. He's got his 9-hole docks, and he's so happy, man. This big guy was so happy they let him on stage. He was smiling and talking about a mission trip he was going to take and lead people. And I said, if they're going to let that guy lead people on mission trips, I can find a place here, dude. And I'm not even joking. I was like, cool, all right, I can be here. But yeah, shortly after that, you took me under your wing and discipled me.
It was shortly after that.
Shortly after that. And so you spent time with me and would say, hey, let's go get something to eat. Let's work on a video project. Even like I said, when we were on that road trip to Houston, it was just for discipleship. He said, hey, come on out. I'm going to go teach. I think you were teaching a media class over in Calvary, Houston. And it was just to spend time and raise me up. And I'll say this too, one of the blessings that I had, and this is why I think the Lord had me there, and I'll wrap it up because I know my wife's probably going to give me the wrap, but is that I got to ask Bunjee all the tough questions I wanted to ask. And we got to go round and round and go, well, how about this? How about that? And what it allowed me to do is wrap my mind around some concepts that I, in a quicker way than it would have taken me longer to figure out. And so that was the blessing to me. And so to bring it back to what I was saying is, even before we were here, you were already discipling me, but then we have a church that makes disciples. And I think that's the life-changing thing. It's walking with each other in life, pouring into each other, raising each other up, and then turning around and having that person do the same thing. So,
Cool story, bro.
they all are.
I've been looking down on him for 25 years now. David, what was a life-changing event that happened in service here for you?
For me, it would just be serving. I was the type of guy that just came in and sat right over there and just watched everybody. And I would just see people go around, walk around, talking to each other, not ever come up to me. And I was cool with it while my wife was in the back serving. So with that, I remember the Lord telling me to serve. And I was like, okay, sure. And I was like, I ain't moving. And someone actually came up to me, talked to me, asked me questions. And I was like, okay, Lord, if you're going to do this, you got to do this. I'm going to put myself in the most uncomfortable position for myself and allow you to change and you get glorified. So I stepped out and served in the ushers ministry. And for those that know me, I'm an introvert. I don't like being on stage or talking. And so I took a step of faith, and the leader / deacon of that ministry was pouring into me discipleship. And then through that, he grew me. The Lord did, not the deacon. He showed me how I should raise my family, what it looked like to be a godly husband, and I was doing it wrong. And so I allowed him to remold me and pull back those layers. And then through that, I remember he told me that he was going to put me at where I was supposed to be at. And I was like, okay. And he was going to put me in leadership. And I remember going up to my deacon at that time was Franco and asking him, are you going anywhere? He told me no. I was okay, I got years, don't have to worry about it. In 3 months, he ramped me up, put me in leadership, and got me ready to where I should have been at when I met my wife. So just allowing him to remold me to be that leader for my wife and now for my family, and then allow me, even now he's challenging me in different aspects to be the leader that he's calling me to be for the ministries that I'm over. So just be open to allowing him to grow you and mold you to be that man / woman that he's calling you to be.
Awesome. When you stepped up, didn't he give you like a basket of hair care products and stuff like that?
Yes.
Expensive creams and lotions?
Yes. It was like...
Don't help it alone.
Franco, how's the Lord worked in your life through serving here as a lead deacon?
Yeah, if three things come to mind: grounded, growing, and grateful. So, on the grounded part, it was.
We don't have time for a Bible study.
No, it's going to be quick because there's a lot of talking over there. So
the extroverts took up all the introverts' time.
Yeah. So I'll make this short, but it grounded in the Word. As you already know, Bunjee is gifted, equipped to teach the Word, and just that is just being grounded in the Word has helped me to understand how I should conduct myself, what my commission is, what my commitment is, and then also counsel. And just, with the counsel part, this has been the roughest 20 years of my life, but Bunjee has been there with the Word, being able to counsel me, and through all these decisions, to get impacted in as far as relationships, health, finances, employment, it's been quite the ride, but there's this being grounded in that, and then growing in faith, growing into faith and growing in faith, and just growing more in love with the Lord, so I can be able to not just be a hearer of the word, but just be a doer of the word, and just being able to exemplify that within the church here. So that's been a growing, it's a work in progress. It's that's been, like right now in my 20 years, I feel like I just want to know him more, just grow more. So there's this excitement and gratefulness in the sense that, obviously the gift of salvation, but then him leading me here to this church and giving me the calling that he's given me and just the opportunity. It's really humbling and just grateful just to be able to be part of this church. And I just I can see how being grounded, growing, and grateful, and just sticking around where he's called you, there's stability in that. Versus, when you're already making plans of leaving and going to work and doing that, that's fine. But for me, it's been staying grounded, growing, and staying part of this church family. And that's where another thing that's grateful is just having this church family, having a family that's believers has helped me. So it just encompasses all that, and just saying, yeah, thank you, just enjoying how I just love, there's people watchers. I'm a people watcher, but I love people growing in their faith, and that rejuvenates me. It gets me excited and to keep going. So that's pretty much, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Chris?
You got 2 minutes, Chris.
I'm not done?
And go.
What's the question?
How has God impacted your life and changed you as you've been serving here?
So I think there's two big things that changed for me that's impacted basically who I am. One is as a deacon, because I don't feel I'm a natural leader. I know leadership rules and directions and stuff because I've had education and business and a lot of different places where you learn the traits of a leader. But putting those into implementation is very tough when you don't feel like that's something that you are comfortable with. And so I would say that being in charge of the fall fiesta, which is, one of my nightmares, it's a big challenge, but it's taught me a lot.
It is Halloween.
It's taught me a lot about how to handle a leadership position and rely on others to help me out with that. So you don't necessarily have to like or be comfortable with something the Lord has called you to do. You need to do it, though, if the Lord's called you to do it. And I feel like that is what he has done in this situation. Is he's called me to be the leader of it, not to walk away from it, but to take the task and do the best I can with his help and with his Holy Spirit. The other big impact for me personally was I changed more as a person through the counseling that I've received from you and Brenda in my marriage. Because learning to be a husband is not easy, especially when men are filled with pride and we're selfish, and giving that up is almost impossible without the Lord.
Yeah.
But being guided and being told and pointed out, where these flaws show up in our relationship has really helped me change as a person. Issues that I've had in the past might not be completely gone, but they're so much smaller than they used to be. Problems with rage and problem with communication and problem with this self-destructive behavior. Turning to the wrong thing for comfort rather than the Lord. I would say that's the biggest personal impact. But in terms of serving, it would have been through being the leader of the Fall Fiesta, which I'm ready to step down from.
All right. So we've canceled Fall Fiesta for next year. Incredible stories, guys. We had talked about having Q&A afterwards, but we don't have any time. So children's ministry leaders are probably clawing at the doors right now.
Hey, can I just add one more thing? I'm not going to go super long, I promise. I wanted to make sure to say
Who
this.
believes this?
Yeah,
Does anybody believe this?
Timing. No, I wanted to make sure to, number one, I think there's two things going on here. One, I want to make sure to give you your propers. 20 years, remaining faithful, serving the Lord, spending time, as Jeremy mentioned, with each and every one of us. And so I want to make sure you know, we see you, we appreciate you.
I'm visible.
You're visible, yes. So yes, thank you for just, that time and that love and that compassion and just all the knowledge and wisdom that you've shared over the years, especially in my life. But then also, and I'm sure you would agree with me, but a big point of this whole exercise here is not only to show you guys a little bit of a glimpse of how this has transpired over the years, but to encourage you to continue serving and see the benefits of serving. And I know we're all, feeling nostalgic here and really reminiscing on like how Bunjee has impacted us. But I know Bunjee would be the first one to say he's not about cult of personality. He really wants to point us to God, and really just what you're seeing. Bunjee's leadership example is really just him remaining available to God, just working in many different ways in his life over the years. And so I'm sure that's the main thing of what we want to see as servants here in this church. It's not about, oh, look, I've bought into a system or a person, but it really is, I've learned how to love Christ. I've learned how to make much of him in my life. And that's, I think, what Bunjee has done a great job at. But I know the first thing he would tell us all is really continue pursuing Christ in your life. And one way of doing that is through serving, which is sanctification, which it really stretches you, it molds you, it shapes you. And so, I just want to add that.
Thank you for that.
And that's in whatever ministry that God has called you to.
Thanks, guys. I value the relationships I have with these men more than I could even express. These are the lead deacons of the church. These are the guys that help keep me accountable. These guys are ready to challenge me when I need to be challenged, and are here to pour themselves into your lives as well. These are the Bunjamites right here. Sorry, Franco, but it's true. So, these guys are here to take the ministries that God has given them and invest in the people who want to be invested in. And with that, I would just point out that, I see a couple different kinds of Christians that come to church. There are those who show up, every 6 months, kind of pop in for a visit, and then they're gone, and they never really grow. And then there's people who are consistently here, 3 times a month, maybe 4, but they never really plug in, and they don't really grow either. The people that I see growing in Christ are those who show up consistently, plug in and serve, and invest in the lives of others, because it's in that investment that the Lord is pouring into them. And so I would just point out that if you really want to spiritually grow, then the way you do that is by consistently showing up, being a part of this church family, plugging into what's happening here, and serving as God leads. And, as you do that, growing happens. It's just by osmosis that you mature in the Lord as issues arise and problems and conflicts, and you work through them, and you continue to be faithful. And those are all the opportunities for growth. Growth isn't just going to happen, spiritually speaking. God's going to provide you with opportunities for growth. You have to step in and accept the challenge and be a part. So, the Christians who pop in every 6 months and disappear, you're not going to grow. Those who show up consistently but don't serve, you're not really going to grow either, because you're not experiencing the opportunities for growth. It's showing up consistently, plugging in and serving, and then accepting the opportunities that God puts in front of you. Those are the Christians who grow. So that's my challenge to everyone here tonight. And I appreciate all those who are so heavily invested in this church, financially, time-wise, serving as you can. I praise the Lord for each and every one of you. And I just want to praise the Lord for my wife as well. I know that she doesn't want the attention. She's shrinking behind her purse as I speak. But, to have a godly woman, who is ready to challenge me when I need to be challenged, and who's ready to support me when I need to be supported, and, hates the bubble, doesn't want to be noticed, doesn't want to be recognized or seen, but, just wants to faithfully serve me and be my helper. I can't say enough about my wife, and grateful for you, Brenda, and being next to me side by side for the last 20 years pastoring this church. Not that she's a pastor, but we're not going there. She's not Cheryl Broderson. So yeah, we won't have Brenda teaching Bible studies on Sunday. But as my helper, and the person that God has brought alongside of me to support me in this endeavor, I'm very grateful for my wife. So I know it can, seeing Brenda as introverted as she is, it's awkward at times, and we all feel that. But I can't. I know that the blessing of her support in my life is impacting you guys, and so I hope you guys recognize that. So thank you, Brenda. Yep.